see a like Wolverine. He wakes up into the new future, and this is probably my second favorite scene in the film. Really, the franchise I think could have ended here because it's such a full circle moment,
Yeah.
especially after the high stakes of this film. And he sees all like the X Men are alive, including Cyclops and Jean Grey, who died in the third X Men film. No one knew that they were going to be in this one, so that was a nice surprise.
Yeah.
Um, Especially for the character of Wolverine, like a lot of his pain across the past few movies was to do with losing Jean Grey. So it's a nice moment for him. And then he sees Professor X as well, who's wearing like a green suit, and he just looks straight out of the like cartoon, you know.
Yeah.
And when he realizes that Wolverine suddenly remembers everything from 1973, he sort of gives this really excited whisper where he's like, "Welcome back."
Yeah.
It's a really great moment.
Yeah,
And
because
then
he's essentially going from times. He's the Professor X who was in the 70s,
he
who's
was,
kind of
yeah. So
lived through all this. So
he would have
you
been
know,
waiting for
yeah,
Wolverine to have
yeah,
that, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and then the so that's like I think a perfect ending to the film. But then
Mm,
there's a final shot of Colonel Stryker in 1973, obviously the one who experiments on Wolverine and stuff. But
yeah.
it's Mystique in disguise, and I
Yeah, yeah,
don't know
which I
why.
don't understand. No,
I've
that would
kind
be
of like,
that would be a good setup for Weapon X. But if
but
that's
it's
Mystique
not
now,
like,
so is that because
yeah,
they've changed history? So now there's Mystique in charge of that
yeah.
program, or does she do something else with them? Or
It just makes. I mean, then in the next film, that's not the case, you know.
yeah,
It's just in my head, I just ignore that moment because it just makes no sense. It's
yeah,
just silly, you know. Uh,
yeah,
but yeah, that's the film. For me, it's like up there with
yeah,
X2 and Logan.
yeah, yeah.
I think it's ahead of time in concept. And I also like I appreciate its deviations from the comic book sometimes. Like
Mm,
for example, showing that final scene of the new timeline. In the comics, that isn't they don't do that, so they
yeah,
leave it ambiguous as to if the future
yeah,
is saved.
yeah,
But I think when it's a film and you've got these returning
yeah,
characters, it's like a nice
yeah,
bow on the end.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's a shame the next film wasn't good.
Yeah,
Apocalypse really dropped the ball.
yeah. I think it's really solid. Yeah, I really loved it when I first saw it. I've kind of cooled to it a little over time, but still kind of
Yeah,
yeah, it's got some great moments. I think it's got a lot more characters to juggle. Obviously, a bigger ensemble, and I don't think it always succeeds in giving everyone like their moments. I think the characters in the future, especially, I mean, obviously they're not the focus, but I think
mm.
Ian McKellen, Elliot Page, and all the older kind of actors don't have as don't have as much to do as I would like. But obviously they're not
That's another
focused.
thing in the
Uh,
comic book. It
yeah,
does dance between the
yeah,
two time periods
yeah.
and doesn't really do it in the
And
film.
I
Yeah,
think the final act is trying to keep a lot of plates spinning. I'm not sure if it always works. I think some of the self-referential stuff gets on my nerves a little bit, but performances are really good. The action, the imagery is good. So
yeah,
it's definitely one of the better X-Men films
For
overall.
me,
yeah.
the intercutting at the end works really well, and the
Mm.
focus on the past, all because that's like the main series here. The others are
Yeah,
the secondary people, so
yeah,
not having as much focus on them didn't bother me. I thought they got to do quite a bit in that final
yeah,
bit where Storm dies and everybody dies.
yeah,
And I did not like that just as they're about to kill Professor X,
yeah,
but up until that moment, I did
yeah,
think that they were balancing like, oh no, the future is about to like be royally
yeah,
screwed. I thought that part was well done, but I did hate that. Of course, they could have at least done like the burst through the door moment, and then there's nobody
yeah,
there. But instead, it
yeah,
was they fire the pyro fire or whatever.
yeah,
But
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
God, it just reminded me how bland these Sentinels look. Why aren't
Mm,
they stupid, silly looking comic book things like the ones in
Which
the
yeah,
in the past? Like,
yeah,
come
they look
on.
good. Yeah, the idea of everyone dying as well in the second issue of the 2 issue run. I think it's X-Men 142. I think the like front cover of it. It says
Chapter and
in this
verse.
issue. Yeah, in this issue, everybody dies. It's like yeah, pretty much.
yeah, yeah, yeah. 'Cause it isn't the cover like all the posters of like all the characters with like crosses
Yeah,
against
so that's the first issue. Yeah, and then the
so,
second one, it's like everybody
yeah,
dies.
yeah.
What a way to get you invested.
Mm. I mean, they even reference that, don't they, in this where again Mystique disguises Trask to go through some files and she sees all the people have already been killed off. So essentially,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all the
first class.
all the sporting players in first class were killed off screen, which again pissed me off a little bit. But
I think that's a mistake.
I fully accept there were too many characters already. They had to get rid of them somehow. But it just seems like a bit of a middle finger to them, really.
If you liked anyone in first class that wasn't Magneto, Professor X, or Mystique, then sorry, mate, they're dead. Yeah.
They were ordered 66 off screen,
Off screen, that's the worst part.
Yeah, it'll be in the Days of Future Past TV series.
No, it will be in the Days of Future Past singer cut or whatever it will be.
Oh no.
This is the movie where he got singer caught like a month before the movie was coming out. That's when the lawsuits were being filed and such. So
the first of them.
Yeah, the first round 1. He was getting Me Too'd before Me Too was a thing. So that's how bad Bryan Singer was. Yeah. It should be called the Bryan Singer effect, really. Yeah. So, do we have anything else on Days of Future Past before Kieran gets to talk?
No.
Are you interested in it, Kieran? Would you watch it based on what we've said?
I mean, to be honest, I'm kind of about superheroes in general and X-Men particularly. So it's one of those ones that I'll get round to when I eventually go, you know what, I've got nothing else to do. I will complete the series and say I've watched them. But it sounds really bad that I'm on a podcast episode talking about the movies and I'm like, I don't care one way or the other. But that's just how it works,
You know nobody hates crossover superhero movies more than me, Kieran. And I love this movie. So
there you go.
Yeah, so speaking of someone who's generally not bothered about the about superheroes and everything they're associated with. Do you want to tell us about Deadpool?
Maybe. I think actually the development of it all is more interesting than the film itself. Although it's interesting because it tried to buck a trend, not necessarily superhero movies, but what the Marvel films, the MCU had done up until this point. Just saying it's like, oh, it's the first R-rated superhero movie, and everyone's like, it's Blade nothing to you. What? Shut up. We've the stuff had been done, but not in Marvel's kind of backyard in that run, that last 10 years in a way. So an initial Deadpool kind of film had been kind of thought about even back in May 2000 when Artisan Entertainment were looking at several characters to do stuff with, including Deadpool. And then David S. Goyer and Reynolds were working possibly on one in 2004 after working on Blade Trinity. And apparently Reynolds is interested in Deadpool after learning, and nicking it straight off Wiki, after learning that in the comics, the character referred to his appearance as Ryan Reynolds crossed with a Sharpei. So even the designers thought it was kind of Ryan Reynolds-ish. And so it goes through loads of iterations. So Fox thinks about it in 2005. You then get him in X-Men Origins, possibly still going to do it later on because it made them some money. And then kind of Avengers comes out, and they kind of not too happy now, and that's doubling up on Green Lantern, which is obviously I haven't seen it, but even I know that was an absolute travesty of a film.
Yep.
And so everyone's now going not 100% happy. So then what they eventually do is they give the guys I think they said a low six-figure budget and give it to Tim Miller to produce some test footage. And he does it a CGI version, and the CGI version, it's kind of a version of the first kind of fight car action sequence we have in the eventual film. And apparently people saw it, the producers saw it and didn't like it, didn't like the idea.
And then they accidentally leaks it, didn't they?
Yeah, and then someone leaks it in 2014, and it got such like massive applause online. Oh my god, why was this never a thing? Essentially, the producers had to kind of just give in and go for it and do it. So it's apparently they didn't want it to be an origin story, but Reynolds disagreed, so they kind of combined the two in a way, which is interesting. You get kind of flashbacks of an origin story rather than just the whole thing, and it's really nice and interesting because not only do you get the whole the fourth wall breaks, you get the foul language, you get the sex references and stuff like that. The budget for this was 53 mil, 58 million according to Wiki, which, as we were saying about some of the X-Men movies, let's just take a look at Days of Future Past. Let me put it on through here. Days of Future Past, according to Wiki, is between 200 and 205 million. So this is like a quarter of the budget. And for superhero movies at the moment, again, this is 2015, 2016. We're getting into the stage of we're chucking money at the stuff now. You know, they're not little piddly things. This is a massive steamrolling kind of thing. 50 grand isn't much. And I think that was because they weren't sure how it was going to do. It's going to be R-rated, so the people going to see it is going to be a smaller amount because obviously not as many people can get in. So your income's going to be less from that and all this kind of stuff. And amazingly enough, it goes and works and makes an absolute killing at the box office. It was made for 58 million. It made 782 million at the box office, which even by modern standards, I mean, I know it's not like the smallest film in the world, but what's that? That's like 15 times the budget. Like,
yeah, I think that's at the time, the highest X-Men grossing film as well. Like, it made more than Days of Future Past, which made like about 700. You know?
And it's one of the most profitable R-rated films of the time as well, wasn't it?
And I will quickly, before I go into it, also proves my point that can we stop having studios making movies like 150 mil?
Yeah.
You don't need to. Like, not a single person has gone, oh, if only Deadpool had another $100 million.
Then they would have guns at the end, Kieran. Come on.
Yeah, and some of the explosions would be better. The trouble is, like, the final shootout, like, one side has guns. It's only the other side. And in the nicest way, the main thing about guns is going to be the cost of the bullets, which is not much. As of 5 years ago, it was 35p per bullet.
There's even a gag in they build one of the earlier action scenes about where Deadpool's only got like 9 bullets in his gun.
He's got 12, because he came out without his arsenal, and he counts them all down. So, like, it's funny, but I don't get because literally they're getting shot at by the bad guys.
Yeah.
So it's not like we had to do this completely like mano a mano kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, still like 58 million compared with all the other stuff that's making, like, you know, oh, we're going to make our movie for like 170 million and then complain when it only makes 150 mil. Well, you can make massive blockbusters for 40, 50 mil and it still makes the money back. This is on you at this point. I'm sorry. So stop complaining. Anyway, it's a kind of an origin story. It is Ryan Reynolds as Wade Wilson, who's kind of a mercenary for hire kind of thing that goes around beating people up. And he goes to this bar, and on the wall they've got this Deadpool where people bet on if they're going to return alive or not. And he meets a girlfriend, Vanessa, and they are very freaky in bed together, and that's kind of the joke. And they go off and he says, your crazy matches my crazy, or something along those lines. And then it turns out that he's got early onset of cancer. So he turns to a kind of a guy who reckons they're trying to work on a miracle cure to give him superpowers. Turns out it's not. It's a British guy that's not really a great British mercenary guy.
You could have just stopped it. It's a British guy.
And he's actually trying to make him into a evil drone. Wade Wilson escapes after a bit of a punch up, but he's now scarred and burned, and he's got regenerative healing powers and can't die. So the rest of the storyline is he's trying to get this guy Francis, who calls himself Ajax, and that's like one of the things that he calls himself Ajax, but his real name is Francis, and most of the bad guys don't know he's called Francis. So Deadpool's going around all these bad guys going, do you know where Francis is? Do you know who Francis is? And it's like, if he said Ajax, they would have gone, yeah, he's over there, kind of thing.
At the end, he arranges all the bodies of the goons he's just taken down into a big let's just say Francis. Just like some guy looks over the edge and sees it.
Well, I now recall the calling people Victor and whatever their name is so frequent, so that's kind of a funnier joke to me now that I've watched more of these movies.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I actually think the most interesting thing about this is the structure, in that it's not linear. It's constantly back and forth between kind of the flashbacks in the modern day, and it's like every 5 minutes it'll jump back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah,
very non-conventional, especially for a superhero movie.
Which I think sort of is meant to reflect his kind of slightly unstable mindset as well, which probably makes this, apart from like the lower budget, this probably makes this the more interesting of the two Deadpool films today.
Because I mean, I was reading stuff on a Kubrick film, The Killing, the other day, and because that's got flash forwards and flashbacks, and that was very influential on people like Tarantino for his early films. And apparently, the studios essentially went, no, we can't do this. We want a more linear narrative, and we want a voiceover, both of which Kubrick hated. And eventually then further test screenings went, okay, you've got to keep the voiceover, but you can have your non-linear narrative. So like it's been a constant thing of kind of genre films don't like to jump around too much. And this thing does. And I watched it again today, and I forgot that it did it that much. Constantly back and forth. So like that is actually an incredibly interesting thing as well.
By the way, I wanted, since this is the first Deadpool movie, what actually are Deadpool's powers besides heal?
That's it, and he can't die.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah.
Does he have like?
Powers,
does he have any super, like, not super, but extra human strength or anything like that?
No. He's just a very well trained killer, basically.
Peak human that can't die.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What was the epic rap battles of history? You've got Wolverine's powers, Snake Eyes' weapons, Spider-Man's eyes, and that's about it. I think what really pulls it off essentially is Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. And you were saying earlier, there are certain people born to play certain roles, and that nobody else would be able to do it now once that person played it. One of the ones I'll always say, people can have a go at me because the films aren't meant to be that kind of, that it's not cool to like them that much, but Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow, like it's not physically possible now to have anybody else as Jack Sparrow. You know what I mean? There are just some people that do that. And Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. Now, whenever you see or hear Ryan Reynolds in anything, he's not Ryan Reynolds. He's Deadpool. You see him in like Detective Pikachu, and it's like, oh my god, it's just Deadpool in a Pikachu CGI.
Why is Deadpool buying a Welsh football club?
Yeah, it's like there's just like the character and the actor have merged together now, and it's impossible to separate them.
I almost made a Taylor Swift joke, and now she's gonna be in the movie.
Like apparently, Blake Lively was saying that when it came out, it was really annoying because she was on a plane and everybody was watching her husband in a really raunchy sex scene eating mashed potatoes out of another girl's ass kind of thing. She's like, this is not what you want to watch. And apparently their kid's like, Dada, and pointing at the screen and not understanding why he wasn't talking back because she thought it was like FaceTime. And you get these random things. But yeah, Ryan Reynolds, in the nicest way, the rest of the movie, once you get the tone, there's a couple of gags that start to work later on, and it's always like these with these films where once you kind of get the tone of some of these comedies, you have to keep getting something really good near the end, otherwise the whole thing kind of falls off the cliff. They do get a couple of nice jibes in. Possibly one of my favorite lines in it is right at the end where he goes to Xavier's mansion, and you've only got the two. You've got Colossus and is it Megatronic
Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Yeah.
That's it. And he walks off at the end, and it's just like, it's weird. There's this big mansion. I only see 2 of you. It's almost like the studio couldn't afford any more X-Men. And
I like when it's been dragged away by Colossus. We've taken you to see the professor. Like, which professor? McAvoy or Stewart? These timelines are so confusing.
Well, there's also, like, now that Wolverine can be in a Deadpool movie, you don't need another straight man. So, like, Colossus is kind of filling a role there for cheaper. Like, I was expecting him to maybe have a bit more of a role in X2, but no, like, now I see why he's in these movies, because he's the guy that carries away the children and then is never seen again.
Yeah,
I mean,
they really one up themselves in Deadpool 2, obviously regarding like the references, to like the budget and stuff like that. When he's wandering around the X mansion, and he has a go in like Xavier's like wheelchair, and he's just and he's saying, "There's no one here." And it's like, what's going on? And then over his shoulder, you see all of the first class cast in full costume in a room. Beast just quietly shuts the door before he turns around.
Now, and obviously for Deadpool 2, they'll go and get Cable, which he does in a Ferris Bueller post-credit scene, which is played by Josh Brolin, who is also Thanos. So I can't remember if they do a joke at that in Deadpool 2. It's like, I've seen you somewhere before or something like that.
I think he just says at one point, "Shut it, Thanos."
Yeah, I was going to say, considering in the trailer for I've no idea what's going to happen in the third one that drops tomorrow. But spoilers, well, it's in the trailer. This is not spoilers. You've got Ant-Man's head that's massive, and it finally opens up and there's a skull, and it's like, oh, Paul Rudd finally aged, So it is in the kind of MCU kind of timeline, or they're getting as close as they can get to that without it being in there in an alternate universe sense. Well, literally, I know nothing of that, but I saw the trailer, and then there's that bit at the end. It's just
because of self-referential stuff, I would imagine it's going to have lots of references to pre-MCU Marvel. So I'm fully expecting cameos from like the old Fantastic Four and people like that.
Well, I mean, in this first one, right at the beginning, the opening credits were over a slow motion of essentially a car crash, which will then flash back to and forward to. And it's got a cover of Ryan Reynolds on the cover of I can't remember which magazine it was, but Sexiest Man Alive.
Is it GQ or something?
Yeah, but then it's also got a picture of him coming out of a wallet of Green Lantern. So he obviously likes taking the mickey out of himself, and he'll do that all the way. I am somebody that now likes going to quieter cinema screenings. Like, if I have to sit next to somebody, I get really annoyed, and I will find the furthest forward I can get, avoiding as many people as possible, so I don't get the eye shine from all their bloody Apple Watches in the corner of my eye when I'm watching something, but not too far forward that I don't get the thing. Like, I try and avoid people.
That's the problem with tomorrow. The screens, they're going to be packed. They're probably going to be rowdy. I mean, that's probably the right kind of audience to see a Deadpool movie.
But this is what I was going to say. Deadpool is possibly the one type of film where you need it.
But if any of those buggers have their phones out on full brightness, I'm gonna lose it.
Yeah, like it's just. There's something, I think somebody on Twitter was complaining that people were taking loud, like noisy snacks into a quiet place. And it's just like, what? This is the third one. How have you not learned by now?
At least the third one's the loud place for some of it.
The okay to speak at a decent volume place. They've turned deaf this time place. No. So this is one which you kind of need a more raucous atmosphere. This is the one that now you kind of go with your mates and you have a couple of drinks, and every time they reference themselves, take a drink kind of thing, or every time they reference Marvel in some way, specifically take a drink or something along those lines. I mean, I'm not a superhero person, and this isn't like, in some ways, yes, it has to stick to formula in certain parts, and it'll get away as much as it can in the other stuff. By being kind of obnoxious and loud and mouthy and what was it that somebody said? Is it Ebert? Or
I don't think he saw Deadpool.
No, whoever was right. It's on the Ebert review. Brian Tallarico, who was writing for RogerEbert.com. says that Deadpool is the cinematic equivalent of that kid in school who would always say just how much he didn't care what people thought of him, but just loud enough so that everyone could hear him.
Yeah.
It's fun and it's got the personality. A lot of it is convention, but you have to stick to convention because then this is a Marvel movie, and they're not going to allow you to do too much. But considering all the movies they've done up until then, because they've done at least 2 Avengers, I don't know when this came out in relation to Civil War, kind of months before or after. So they're at least sort of like 14, 15, 16 movies into the run. You know, and DC's doing their darker versions, but it's still PG-13 stuff. It's just we'll throw some more mood and atmosphere and some smoke into it.
One thing I'm not looking forward to is the more Marvel references now that he's in it. Like, I'm worried that they're going to lean too hard into it. It's going to get, because already Deadpool's writing a line, right, where Chimichanga, that's hilarious to some. Like, he went through that. I've seen the 2000s internet Deadpool humor phase. Yeah. And the movies do a good job of keeping it a bit more broad, putting in different kinds of humor, making the reference, like they have the little figure of Deadpool from X-Men Origins Wolverine. Yeah. But it's going to get more blatant as these go on, and I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah. I mean, I've only seen Deadpool 2 the once. I can't remember that much about it, to be honest, aside from they essentially just go, yeah, this is just Terminator 2. We're doing Terminator 2. But and as much as I'm not a massive superhero fan, this is one that if it comes on with mates, I will sit down to watch because it is a laugh. It's stupid and raucous, but that's what it was going for, and it does it very well.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, I watched it recently, just if it's on Disney Plus or whatever it's on. Maybe it's Hulu. I don't remember what it's on here. But yeah, just like putting it on, it's real easy to watch. It is funny. I like it. I might like 2 more, but
yeah. I was going to say, a lot of it works because with this the formula that we've built up, a lot of it is shock value.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point. And it's a film that had to come out in this format at that specific time. 10 years earlier, it wouldn't have worked. And I think 10 years later, if it came out the first time, it wouldn't have worked. If it came out, now or in a few years' time, it wouldn't have worked. But at that point, when Marvel was at its height, just going into Infinity War and Endgame, which is like, let's be honest, that's where Marvel have peaked. Everything else has been kind of the bonus editions. Let's be fair. It's like, oh, this is the second-hand stuff we don't really care about. Like at that specific moment, this was the superhero film that had to come out right then, and it hit the nerve. And like, yeah, it was just the right film at the right time, and it's with all that context, I think that makes it better and almost interesting as a cultural artifact, a study of a zeitgeist at a time, as much as a film itself.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yes. All right. Well, Kieran, you have some more movies to watch after this one, I guess. But just because
I mean, I probably won't go see Deadpool Wolverine in cinemas, just because I've got a load to do in the next few weeks, and I have full-time PhDs to do and stuff. But when it eventually comes out onto stuff, I will probably get around to watching it in, like, a year that make that 10 years. That's how it works.
By the way, last question here. Is Wolverine Deadpool a Deadpool movie or a Wolverine movie, since they both have their own line? It feels like Deadpool 3 to me more than Wolverine 4.
Well, yeah.
No, it's Deadpool 3.
Yeah. It was announced as Deadpool 3, and then they had Hugh Jackman join him some promos. I said, do you fancy playing Wolverine one more time, Hugh?
Yeah.
Goes, yeah, all right.
Do Hugh?
Yeah, but even if this is a crossover, this is it's kind of Deadpool, but also like X-Men 11 or whatever it is. In the same way that like Civil War was technically Captain America, but was really Avengers 2.5.
Yeah.
And I guess he's dead because of Logan. So,
Cool.
Yeah. Does Logan just not exist? Was that always an alternate future sort of thing?
But it's also he's obviously not as old as he was in Logan, so Logan can still happen, can't it?
Yeah, that's true. I'm not counting it out, but maybe there was Days of Future past shenanigans. And
I will also point out that in this one, right at the end, where the Deadpool teams up with Colossus and Negatronic Teenage Warhead, Teenage Warhead is in the yellow costume. Which is that like the do they go into the yellow costumes in any of the X-Men movies?
In first class, yeah, and at the start of Dark Phoenix. Yeah.
Okay, but those are the much later ones.
Yeah.
I think First Class came out before
2011. Okay,
yeah.
I was going to say, because otherwise this would have been like the first one to do it.
It's the first contemporary set one that has those costumes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of at the point now where I want your costumes to be sillier. It's gonna make your superhero movie better because we've had all the gritty serious.
Yeah, I mean, Wolverine is wearing his yellow in the new film.
Yeah.
So.
And everyone's complaining about it as well. It's like, look, you were complaining he wasn't in a yellow suit before. Now he's got in a yellow, and you go, oh, it's not the right yellow suit. Shut up. Just enjoy the movie.
Yeah. But is it as bad as the Superman suit? Oh, I don't know.
Oh God.
Before we go off on a whole tangent about superhero costumes, I think we need to draw this to a close.
Yeah, probably.
2.5 hours in. It's getting late around here.
George,
we've run as long as the longest X-Men film of Days of Future Past now. So
there you go. George, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
what are your final thoughts on Deadpool, by the way? Because I don't think you actually.
I think it's not a film I love, but I like it and the second one. It's just not really my humor, but I appreciate them. They're good. And also, it came out like on Valentine's Day weekend.
Yeah,
so a lot of the marketing, they sort of, they sort of like faked movie posters where it looked like it was going to be a romantic comedy with Ryan Reynolds and whoever plays the love interest. So that was pretty fun. But to prank some people. But yeah, it's a good film. It's fine. It's just not it's not like top of the crop.
I really enjoy it. I've revisited it quite regularly. It's always makes me laugh. I think that the second one kind of is almost the Joker starts to wear a little thin, which is what makes me slightly worried about the new one. But there's a scrappiness to this one, which is very appealing.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Beautiful. Well, George, you will not be back here next week, but like the rest of us, I mean, I guess you can if you want to. Kieran won't be here. We need somebody.
I was going to say, I will be at Silverstone Racetrack next week.
Can be the like Patrick Stewart. I'll be James McAvoy.
Ooh.
And then one day we'll meet.
I'll record a voiceover. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Well, until next time, George, where can people find you?
Just on Twitter, really, where I promote my film magazine stuff. It's Mr. George Lax, a bit like the Pokemon Snorlax, which is where I got the name from.
Oh.
So there you go. But that's the only thing I've got to plug, really. And thanks for having me. It's been lovely to chat X-Men. I don't have anyone in like real life who is into X-Men as much as me.
Ooh.
So this has been very good.
Nice. Sam.
As always, SSP Thinks Film and the Film Magazine, where I will be writing a review of Deadpool Wolverine as soon as I've seen it, so that'll probably be up on Friday. If you fancy digging through the archives a bit, I did review New Mutants a few years back, so if you want vaguely X-Men related content, then check out what I thought of that. I think
they're probably old mutants by now.
I think I'm one of the more positive reviews on that, even I thought it was a mixed bag, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you don't find me anywhere, but if you do, I am K Judgmental in the various places, especially TFM Film Magazine, where my review of Twisters is now up, and I will in the next few days have a Where to Start with Stanley Kubrick, 3 films coming out.
Ooh.
Nice. You can find me at Jacob Film Guy. Things that I've written are at the Film Magazine, but since I don't write stuff, you
was
can
gonna say this section for you. We should rinse and repeat. We should record it and play it off a tape.
Now it's I read other people's stuff. So Holly Carter, she wrote Shelley Duvall 3 career-defining performances. R.I.P. Shelley Duvall.
R.I.P.
Yeah. I'm not gonna spoil the list, but I'm sure if you really think hard about it, you can guess one of them. We have 10 best moments from When Harry Met Sally. That's from Grace Laidler. I really like that movie, so go check that out. And then also our Maxine review from Margaret Rorty went up on the 19th, and I liked Maxine personally. It's unfortunate for me that this trilogy occurred because now I like T. West, and before I did not. So thanks for changing my view, T. West.
Maxine isn't showing anywhere near me, which is really annoying because I want to watch it just to see if I liked it more than Pearl. Because I can't remember much about Pearl except it's like, oh, I'm from the South and I've had a bad childhood, so now I'm going to be a serial killer, and that makes me a good person.
Kieran,
people should support me. And I'm like,
Pearl is. If you don't like Pearl, you're not going to like it. Pearl's better.
I appreciated Pearl. But at the same time, I'm like, I've also seen this movie before.
I don't think I've seen a movie do what Pearl's doing the way Pearl does it. Like, there aren't a lot of 1940s or stealing from the style of 1940s, musical slashers. But
no, that's Maxine, surely.
Yeah, and then also.
Please wrap it up.
That's it. That's all we have. Whatever we say, Redbubble. I don't know.
Buy stuff.
Buy
stuff. New designs out.
Give us money. Like, subscribe, comment, whatever. It's down there. Goodbye.
Bye.
See ya.